All right, what's up, guys? Jackson Abe here, and today we are going to talk about a major question that pops up a lot for a lot of nutrition clients, and that is, are you even eating enough food or consuming enough calories to enter a true caloric deficit in order to enter a true fat loss phase? A lot of people typically think that just by not eating or eating very small meals a couple times a day is what is going to trigger fat loss and get them to where they really want to be, body composition wise. And that cannot be further from the truth, because at the end of the day, we have certain needs that need to be met nutritionally, and certain caloric intakes that need to be met, in order for us to maintain the muscle, that we have if we are actively training, hormone production, through fat consumption and things of that nature, amongst a host of other things, cognitive and heart health wise. But truthfully, a lot of people get it mixed up when it comes to dieting. Like I said, they think that just eating a small amount of food every single day is going to help them lose weight, when in reality, they aren't eating enough calories in the first place to really enter a fat loss phase, because they're not consuming enough calories in the first place. So their body thinks that calories are scarce. So their body wants to hoard more of these calories because it doesn't know necessarily when that next meal might be coming, or it just might not be getting enough calories, like I said, to uptake with the various functions of the body, and your daily expenditure, daily energy expenditure as well. So if you're only consuming a little amount of calories, and even if you're, not a very active individual, but maybe you don't train that much either, you're not going to be losing much weight. So we have a couple examples here. And so the first one is, a very low starting point. Let's say that you eat between 16 and 1800 calories a day, and that is what you can maintain your body weight on. You're not losing weight, you're not gaining weight, you are maintaining the weight by consuming that many calories. So to go in a true caloric deficit, the 500 calorie deficit per day, would mean that you would need to consume 1200 calories per day, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just not really ideal, because essentially, where are we going to go from there once we hit a plateau? 1200 calories is already a very low amount of calories, and not really ideal for anyone. So in the first place, this is not a good starting point to be in general. But if you were to have to cut another 500 calories from there, what are you going to eat? 700 calories a day. I weigh 200 pounds. So if I eat a gram of protein per pound of body weight, that's 200 grams of protein. That's 800 calories. Like, for me, I can't even get my protein intake in, and that doesn't even include, what I need via fat, every day as well, from the calories of that. So if you look at this example, let's say starting point, you're between 22 and 2400 calories every single day, to maintain that body weight. And you take 5500 from that, you're sitting around 1700 for your first, deficit of what you're going to be eating every single day, which you're in a much better position here because it's your starting point over here per se, right? And then you can technically, go with another 500 deficit from there and be at 1200 calories per day. Like I said, it's not ideal, but it's better than this scenario over here where, we're not even getting enough nutrients to help our bodies out at all. And so, like I said, while this is not ideal, what we have to do here is we have to do or perform or implement what is called the reverse diet. And so essentially all this is, this is for a lot of people that have already been in a really long weight loss phase, so their calories are low, and we need to slowly increment their calories back up. We need to build their metabolism back up and get them to a point where their daily caloric minimum is much higher, preferably, even higher than that number. For a lot of people, it sounds surprising, but you can build your bodies up to consume, between 2,500 and 3,000 calories per day, just as a regular gym goer, regular busy parent, worker, whatever have you. And then when you want to enter a true fat loss, imagine you're starting this number at 2,700, and then you're able to take 500 from that, and you're eating literally 2,200 calories a day, in a deficit. You have a lot more wiggle room to work with there. You have different cards that you can play and different, levers that you can pull, throughout the way to keep that fat loss going. Where, like I said, this scenario is really not, prevalent. It's not going to be ideal for anyone. And this scenario is, like I said, it's a bit better, but it's still not ideal. So if we can reverse diet, incrementally increase our calories while minimizing fat gain, build that metabolism up to be able to handle more food over time. Like I said, increasing that daily caloric minimum to where that number is sitting, in my opinion, above 2,500 for most people. um, and with all this, an increase in strength training frequency along with daily activity, because I'm not going to make any assumptions here, but if you're this kind of person, I can't believe that you're actively in the gym every single day, really truly pushing yourself, getting a high daily step count, and you're not losing weight in some capacity, there. I think a lot of people really shortchange themselves on how hard they push themselves in the gym. And unless you're actively tracking your steps, or you work a job where you are on your feet for 6, 7, 8+ hours a day, a lot of people really tend to overshoot, how active they really are and how many calories they think they're actually burning throughout the day. So a big part of all of this, big picture, is ensuring that you are getting adequate time in the gym, but you really are pushing yourself and you are tracking your steps in one way, shape or another, unless, like I said, you are a labor worker, or you're someone who's on your feet, throughout the entire day almost. And you don't have to really worry about if you were active or not. You were active. All of these things play, together to really build our bodies up in our capacity to be able to handle more food, right? Because again, ideally, like I said, I weigh 200 pounds. If I consume 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, that's 800 calories. Uh, that would take up a bit of that number as well. And then even if I have a very short amount of fats have more calories, per gram than carbs and proteins do. So even just a little amount of fat, combined with my 800 calories, if I'm this kind of person, what I mean, like I don't have much room to have, carbohydrate intake to fuel my performance. Now, if my goals were different, it might be, it would look, a lot different, but there's still just not a lot of room there to have, carbohydrates to fuel that performance and things of that nature. So your body might, if, like I said, you're consuming what I'm consuming, your body's going to start pulling protein from, or pull energy from the protein that you're consuming if, you're just not getting the nutrients that you need from other places. So increasing the strength training, making sure that we're consuming adequate amounts of protein and fat, filling the remainder of our calories with carbohydrates, and like I said, slowly trying to increase the amount of carbs that our body can tolerate over time, is going to get us into a much better starting point to actually truly enter, a really long-term weight loss phase, to where we can really chisel down, get in really good lean shape, visible striations, veins. We can see the outlines of our muscles throughout our body. And then again, build back up, slowly increase the calories again, go through a bulk and then a phase. It's kind of just like a wave. You go up and down, and after, a certain amount of years doing this, consistently and performing and executing everything to a T, you're going to have a body that you're very, very proud of. You're going to have a physique that speaks for itself. But anytime you want to enter, weight loss phase, your calorie starting point is going to be much higher than 2,300 or 2,500. Like I said, after you're going through this in a wave-like fashion, coming up and down consistently over the years, you're really going to build up. Be able to start your diets at a much better point than if you're starting at a much lower calorie count.